Hey everyone, this is Simone. I am hopping on here really quickly to let you know that in today's episode, we are talking about 2002's Enough. And as amazing as this movie is, it does depict descriptions and scenes of domestic abuse and domestic violence. And we'd like to give every one of our listeners, however many that we may have at this point, a slight trigger warning. And if you feel the need to skip this episode or fast forward through any of these segments, that is absolutely fine. We love you all the same.
Thank you for tuning in to Roll Call. The movie selected is Enough.
Welcome to Roll Call, the show where two childless millennials gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Because, let's face it, we miss Blockbuster.
Yeah, I could never get enough of Blockbuster as a kid.
That's a good one. Quick thought. Do you think anyone is offended by childless millennials?
Millennials themselves or people not of millennials, they're offended by the phrase?
Just in general.
I mean, I think at first, I think the connotation of where it kind of came from of how people without children don't belong in a Disney park, I feel like that statement and comment is offensive. But I really like the fact that millennials, like ourselves, have since owned that term and like have kind of worn it proudly. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be proud if you have kids or don't have kids or, you know, everything else in between.
But we know those people are proud. We see it on our Instagram and Facebook feeds. So that's the point. I was just thinking about it because as we edit our podcasts, I hear it all the time and I'm like, I wonder if anybody would hear that and be like, oh, fuck these, fuck this podcast.
But I mean, yes, we're childless, but it's just a like phrase that you and I have started saying since that came out. And I think that for me, it doesn't feel like it comes from a place of bragging. It's just as a place of like, we're just
facts, no printer.
Just facts. It's just facts. Yeah.
All right. So welcome, guys. I'm Bria, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this highly questionable shower scene in Enough.
Yeah, we definitely need to break that down. And I'm Simone, and no lie, my nephew was straight up born when me and Bria were watching this movie together on Thursday. So welcome to the world, little Elliot. I'm so happy that you are here.
Yes, welcome to the Auntie Club, Simone. Officially, we are just wine aunts, just living our best lives.
Honestly, I'm really okay if this is like the peak of my life. Like I'm good. I'm good.
Oh my God. So you guys, we wrapped up another not so many episode focused on JLo's second studio album and some of the major pop culture century events during 2001. And I have to tell you, I am so excited to do another not so many bonus episode because as grand as Bennifer was, we have been blessed by the pop culture gods because Bennifer 2.0 exists. And I just feel like we are like just trucking along in the best timeline possible to go with our podcast. Like it just feels like so kismet in so many ways. So I'm excited.
Yes, it feels, what's the word, serendipitous? Like just, it is meant to be, it is fate. And I think in this new version of 2.0, are we going to just go with Bennifer? Should we go, what was the other one? Benjamin, that's it. I'm good with Benjamin.
I mean, that one's clever and that one's cute. But I mean, Bennifer started off the whole celeb names. And so this is like a little teaser of what we'll talk about probably in that episode. But I think Jennifer is classic, and slap a 2.0 or a part duh on that, or part dose because of J-Lo. And I'm right there. I'm watching. I'm here for it.
All eyes are the eyes of the nation have turned upon this relationship.
Yes, which kind of means it's probably doomed again, but
no.
So you guys, in today's episode, we'll chat about who else but Jennifer Lopez, again in a suspense thriller by the name of Enough. So let's take a trip back to May 21st, 2002. Simone, you have the honors of giving us some pop culture of the early aughts.
Yes. All right. So we're kind of switching things up a little bit, and I just feel like as we're getting into the aughts, the research on pop culture stuff has just been getting more and more fun, and like the segment and banter between you and I has been getting lengthier and lengthier because
we were like cognizant of what was going on at that time. We love the 90s. Yes, we're 90s babies. We love it. We cherish it. We wish we could time travel back to it. But the early 2000s, like, we're so impressionable as kids then. So our eyes were wide open and our brains were just soaking up all of the pop culture juices that were flowing at that time. So hit me with the good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, this movie came out in May 2002. It came, I think it debuted on May 24th, which was the weekend right before Memorial Weekend in May. So not quite like the busy weekend blockbuster hit. But we had some scorchers coming out in May, and not only are these big films, but they're films that also contributed a lot to just the general pop culture of 2002. So of all of the highest grossing films in May, Spider-Man, starring Tobey Maguire, the first one of the series with Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, grossed $343 million.
Damn.
I know. And then the second highest grossing film of May was Star Wars 2: Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
And this is where we get Natalie Portman, we get Hayden Christensen, because they were too young in Star Wars 1. But that's the Phantom Menace. But anyways, that grossed $216 million. And to be fair, I rounded to an even number. The closer numbers, we can probably round up closer by $1 more million. But then we make quite a bit of a jump between the second highest grossing and the third highest grossing. So Unfaithful made $43 million. Richard Gere and Diane Lane.
Hold the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this movie before, I think, because I am the resident sex scene expert on this podcast. And I love a good sex scene and love a sexy movie. And let me tell you, Unfaithful is that girl, still that girl. 50 Shades of Grey, 365 Days. What? Who? I don't know her. Okay. Which is funny because this is a J-Lo podcast, but we're going to use a Mariah reference. But Unfaithful, I love that movie. It's still amazing.
Yes. We also get Insomnia, which jumped down another $10 million. That's $34 million. A movie that debuted at the same time as Enough in May 24th, 2002 was Spirit. That was the animated movie with the horse. DreamWorks, I believe, put it out.
Yeah, I think Matt Damon's in it.
Maybe. Yeah. I never saw it. But I love the ice cream flavor at Baskin Robbins Wild and Reckless that has stayed since the movie came out.
Wait, seriously?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I need to take a trip to Baskin Robbins and try this flavor because it is that iconic that it's still there 20-ish years later. Wow.
Yes, I am like 95% sure. There might be a small inkling of doubt, but 95% sure that that flavor was inspired by Spirit. And it's like a green, it's a sherbet. It's like a green, purple, and pink sherbet, I think. But it's
Oh,
good.
all right. Well, still might take the trip.
Yeah, totally. We also have The New Guy,
I love that movie.
The Scorpion King,
Yes,
which
that's
is
The Rock's
that
big
is.
first movie.
Because he was in The Mummy Returns as the Scorpion King, but they decided to give him it was so successful that they were riding off of the high of the Mummy series and gave him his own movie and like background story. But
Not so good.
it's not it's a little weak sauce in my opinion, but we're also missing B. Frage, so I don't
That's
know.
probably why. But look at how stuck we have gotten with The Rock. Can't move him.
No.
He's a boulder. You
He
can't.
he sure is. We also, the last two ones that kind of are of note to me are About a Boy, starring Hugh Grant, and Undercover Brother, which I definitely saw in the theater.
We had that DVD, and me and my nephew watched that movie a lot as kids. And that's the beauty too of having physical movies in the house.
Mhm.
Is like when there isn't anything on TV and pre-streaming where you could just travel down memory lane, you were like, okay, what the fuck are we gonna watch? And it's
Yep.
like, let's watch Undercover Brother again.
And you either flip through your CD binder of DVDs if you discarded like the hard case shells, or you had your like bookshelves of all of your of your DVDs, and you're just like, I would sometimes close my eyes and just like, and wherever my finger would stop, that would be the movie we picked.
Yeah, see, we had a DVD shelf downstairs with the TV, with the big screen TV that was on the ground pre-flat screens. And movies like Unfaithful and Undercover Brother, those got snatched out of the collective selection and wound up in my room. And like Finding Nemo too, some appropriate stuff. The Janet Jackson concert DVD, which I just rewatched. So yes, I miss DVDs.
All right. So those were the kind of highest grossing movies in the month of May. And let's kind of talk about just pop culture and life in general in the year of 2002. 2002, as we kind of talked about in last episode, we're coming off of, not coming off, but like America is still living in a post 9/11 world, and it's still, that's something that will pop up almost every month of the year 2002. There's something, whether it had to do with cleanup, reconstruction,
weapons of mass destruction,
the axis of evil speech that George Bush gave in his State of the Union address. And so I remember very clearly seeing the world shift and change. And it's interesting because in 2002, I was the age of the students that I teach now as middle schoolers. And I think about, how I try to instill this idea of critical thinking and using multiple perspectives when, approaching history and politics and whatever. So yeah, it's just really little seventh grader me was just learning about anarchy and trying to fight the man.
Yeah, I will say that I am younger than you, so I was in 4th grade, so I don't think I had the tools to fully understand. But living in the Bay Area, we have multiple bridges, and I would cross the bridge every day to go to school at that point and go through a tunnel. And I had this I I don't think it was irrational, but this very real fear that like a terrorist attack would happen on the bridge or in the tunnel. And so it's weird to think about stuff like that. Like I was definitely affected by that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, nothing really has been the same since. So
Airports sure have not. So
absolutely. But in other news, the Winter Olympics were held in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we have a couple of firsts for the Olympics. Couple of cool firsts. This was the first time that a women's bobsled team had competed. And because of that, we have two first black athletes winning gold at a Winter Olympics.
Are they cool runnings?
Yeah. So one of them is Vanetta Flowers from the U.S. who won gold for bobsledding. So thank goodness that
you just taught me some Black history. I've never even heard of this. This is amazing.
And then the second athlete is Jerome Iginla, and he won gold in men's ice hockey.
Oh.
In other sports news. Yeah.
Actually, there's more Black hockey players now, but like it's still like not very common.
Yeah. Well, I can't pretend like I know anything about hockey other than I, can appreciate it as a sport. I know it's really difficult and really violent, and I think I've only ever been to one game in my entire life, and I was really young.
Go
but
Sharks.
Yeah, it was a Sharks game. But yeah, he was from Canada. It was not a US winner, and I think they said Norway won the majority of the gold that year anyways.
In hockey?
Oh, just in any winter sports. Yeah, because this was before Sean Winters and before we start to see a lot of the crazy...
Sean White?
Oh, wait, who's Sean? Oh, Sean Winters is a boy I went to school with. Hi, Sean. He was actually a really good friend of mine in 7th grade. Anyways, yes, Sean White. Yeah, that was like pre all the crazy like snowboarding. He's on X Games mode.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. All right, so we also have the FIFA World Cup, which was played May 31st to June 30th. This was hosted in South Korea and Japan, and it was the first time the World Cup had been held in any other place besides Europe or the Americas, and the first time that it was held between like two different countries. And that year, Brazil defeats Germany.
Makes sense. Checks out.
In true crime news, Chandra Levy's remains are found in May in 2002 in Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C. And this was damn near, I think it was already a year after she had been missing.
I mentioned that in the last podcast that she had gone missing, and it was a big case. So,
yeah,
man,
they really fucked up that case. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for music, Eminem releases his 4th studio album, The Eminem Show.
Is that the album with like, I said, I'm sorry, mama.
I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to make you cry, because tonight I'm cleaning out my closet. Yes, you are correct. Clean out my closet and White America, which is a really fucked up song. But
I don't think I've listened to the album. I might have to give it a listen. So does that wrap up our pop culture of 2002?
That wraps it up.
So now let's talk about box office. So Enough had a budget of $38 million. Nice hefty budget. About 12 million of that went to Miss Lopez herself, I believe.
Huh. That
was her rate at this time, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went on to make 40 million domestically. I kind of rounded up as well. And then it grossed 51 million, including international and domestic box offices. So not quite a blockbuster or smash hit, but it made back its budget and a little more. So not bad. Okay. I think this is another movie that probably did really well rental wise for J-Lo.
Yeah. Well, also considering the fact that two huge, I mean, I don't want to say nerd, but I kind of want to say nerd. We got like comic book movies and Star Wars movies coming out this month.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as we think this is a great movie, I don't think that it could really ever compete with Spider-Man and Attack of the Clones. It just,
No,
I
yeah.
don't feel like anything that month had stood a chance.
So, Simone, do you think this year might be like this might mark the change of like movie tides that we are now very much swimming deeply in? But like movies like Unfaithful or maybe Enough. I don't think we get that many of those anymore.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Well, I think in the year that we are in right now, I don't see a lot of originality anyways, besides the ones that are Oscar nominated, but even those might not get as much hype or attention because we're getting so many remakes and reboots and sequels and prequels and uh, s- stuff that can be streamed automatically to HBO or Disney Plus. Um, and so
Well,
I
part
don't
of
know.
that's the pandemic.
Oh,
So,
true. That is very true. It's very true. But like, I don't know, just the Avengers have been dominating the action scene. And when The Mandalorian came out, that like really kind of kept the interest in Star Wars as they're kind of shifting through to new stories and new generations. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good question.
yeah. Well, we shall see as we continue to do this podcast in general. We'll be seeing like other movies that came out.
Looking back at the early Spider-Man movies now with Tobey Maguire, I've said this once, will say it again. Tobey Maguire is a great I think Tobey Maguire is a great Peter Parker. I just didn't think he was a great Spider-Man. So when I look back at these movies, I think the Tobey Maguire series are really campy, but at the time it came
Yeah.
out, it was great. And even the second Spider-Man, which came out I think a couple of years later in 2004 with that smash banger Dashboard Confessional Vindicated coming on in the closing credits was like so good.
All right. So I did find that in 2002, Enough was in the top 50 of video rentals. It's number 44. And number one would be Don't Say a Word, which makes so much sense. Do you remember that movie?
No.
The trailer or the commercial would be like at the end, it'd be like, I'll never tell. Like it's so creepy and haunting. Like number two is Ocean's 11, and number three is Training Day, which makes sense because of Denzel Washington winding up winning the Oscar for that. And then number four is Fast and the Furious. Five, The Others, and number six is American Pie 2, which I'm going to stop at there because I feel like that's the one I wanted to get to because that makes so much sense for the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think this movie was another movie that might not have done well, or, it did well, but it wasn't like this huge monster hit of a movie,
Mm.
money wise, at least in the theaters, but I think on DVD and rentals, and it definitely gained appreciation and a fandom there.
Mhm.
Because that's how I remember watching it, was at home, and I'm pretty sure it's because my mom wanted to watch it, so I'm pretty sure it was lots of moms renting this movie. um, so to go on from that, we have Little Raj, Mr. Roger Ebert. I did look at some other reviews
Okay.
just because I was like, I was literally flabbergasted. It took every ounce in me to not text you and be like, you'll never guess what Roger Ebert rated this movie. So, Simone, how many stars do you think Little Raj gave Enough?
Well, shit, because now that can go either way. Either he gave it like a perfect score or something hella low. And so that throws out my original guess, which would have been like a solid 3 or 3.5.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Ebert, little Raj, was out here in these streets giving enough 1.5 stars.
You're fucking joking.
I
Lil
am
Raj
not.
gave Blood and Wine like 4.5 stars, but he gives Enough 1.5.
Yes. Yes. So, my theory with the critical or the critics' ratings and reviews on this movie is that this movie had men all tight in their little tighty whities, hating and yes, and bitter and all that stuff, which, you know, they had the audacity to give this movie 1.5 stars. We watched the movie together. Watching it, I felt like we both still very much enjoyed it. I think it holds up. Obviously, we'll talk about that later. So I didn't agree with Lil Raj's rating. I did point out some quotes. So he talks about Gracie, played by Tessa Allen, and he says, he's like, make her more or less insufferable. After the 9th or 10th scream of "Mommy, Mommy," we hope that she will be shipped off to an excellent daycare center for the rest of the story. Like, no chill whatsoever.
Wow. Okay, straight up attack. I mean, granted, to be fair, child acting's tough. Like, you can either be a straight-faced Dakota Fanning and nail it, or you could do the best that you can.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that they didn't ship Gracie off to a daycare, because then Mitch would have found her. That was the whole thing. She had to stay. Fuck you, Lil Raj. She had to stay with J-Lo. Actually, may your soul rest in peace. But like, fuck you, because she had to stay with J-Lo. She had to stay with Slim, with her mom, because if they were separated, then she would have been with her abusive father. She never would have been able to see her mother again. And that was like Gracie, anyways. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He said what he said. I don't agree with his opinion, but he said what he said. Keep going.
So it does seem like a lot of reviewers had issue with Tessa Allen's acting. Mind you, this is her first movie as a child actor. Her IMDb is short. She doesn't seem to have continued acting a lot. But I personally, my main issue with Gracie was more so that she was like so white and she didn't look like she was mixed at all. And I would have preferred the child look Latina a little bit. But, you know, movies, whatever. I got over that. But I didn't really have a problem with her being a central part of the story and like always in the mix of everything. I didn't find her very annoying. I did find it funny when she was like, I don't call you Slim anyways, because you're not that slim. Like, burn. Like, but yeah, I was just like, damn, Lil Raj, she's a kid, man. Calm down. He goes on to say, which I kind of love this about him because he has no shame at this point. He's like, Jennifer Lopez is one of my favorite actresses, but not here, where the dialogue requires her to be passionate and overwrought in a way that is simply not believable. Maybe because no one could take this cartoon of a story seriously.
Huh. Did he explain why he said cartoon?
So he thinks that the script is not that strong, and a lot of critics seem to think the same thing. Like, the story isn't strong, like the abuse portion of it is like very maybe glossed over, not believable. Somebody did poke some holes in the end scene that I was like, oh damn. But like for me, like my suspension of disbelief with this movie was high. Like, I wasn't trying to poke holes while we were watching this movie. I was just enjoying the ride. So they are critics. So they are being very critical of this movie, which I think there has to be a balance with movie critics, because I think I don't know if I was talking about this with someone or on Twitter, but people were saying how like things like Metascore and stuff like that will like tarnish a movie. Like the Metascore for this movie is 25, or Rotten Tomatoes and stuff will tarnish a movie and like score it really low. But like, and sometimes a lot of people put weight in that, or they look at that and they're like, oh, I'm not going to see that movie or stuff. And I think we rely a lot on stuff like that about movies or even social media. It's very rare that you just watch a movie and just give it a shot just for what the heck, like you're like, oh, I heard that movie was trash. I'm not going to waste my money to see that or rent it or whatever.
Or you already let someone else's review tarnish your like opinion on it. Or if you look it up and you're like, oh, it only got 10% on Rotten Tomatoes, like must be, I get that.
So I just think there has to be a balance, especially now because of that, of like reviewing a movie based on like artistic merit and director and the writing and the acting and all that stuff. But then like we also have to think with the casual average person who isn't I watch so many movies a year person, like the casual stay-at-home mom or a group of ladies going out to hang out with their friends for the evening. Would they enjoy this movie? And in my opinion, yes. So that's where I don't understand why the reviews are so bad, but they're reviewing it for money and I am not. So I did read some other ones because I was like, oh, it can't be like across the board, but most people were critical. So in the New York Times, Stephen Holden wrote that enough could be a women's revenge for Fatal Attraction, even though they're both written by men, which he's saying that because of Fatal Attraction and how it painted like women and they could be crazy and all that stuff, like this is a shot to redeem that and have the woman of abuse come out on top and stuff. But like I was like, but they're both written by men, so like, and he made that point himself, so you told on yourself. I'm like, why even make that point then if you know that like it's not like women writers or directors are like, we're gonna make an answer to Fatal Attraction. Like no, that's not what happened. So I just thought that was absurd. And then he also talks about the movie in this way where he's like, there's this new emergence of a Hollywood subgenre of the male yuppie horror film. And basically movies like this, Double Jeopardy with Ashley Judd, Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts, where there are these yuppie rich white men in these marriages and they are abusive to their wives or manipulative and the wives try to leave or get revenge and stuff. And it gives me very much like Not All Men energy, even though this is 2002, because it's just like, okay, and like like it happens, like people in power and even non-white men, but just men in power, they like to use that against women in their lives. So it's not a far-fetched theme to explore in movies. Like, give me a break. And then last but not least, in Rolling Stone, Peter Travers writes, when he is first talking about J-Lo, I was just like, what the fuck, really? He says Booty Queen Jennifer Lopez plays Slim, and I was like, hold the phone, really? Booty Queen? That is what we're going with here. Like, I just feel like all these men were just in their feelings because they can't even write objectively about this movie. What he does go on to say that I agree with, though, is what does work is Lopez, who has a genuine star presence, see, Out of Sight, even in dim projects like this and Angel Eyes and The Wedding Planner. So I was like, oh yeah, we've said that, where we think that it's not her, it's like some of the movies aren't that great.
Yeah. And I think that can be a test to someone's real acting abilities, is taking a movie that has shitty writing or a contrived plot or a plot that has holes in it, but still make it watchable or enjoyable to watch. I don't know. And another thing I thought was interesting was that once again, Sandra Bullock was the first person considered for this role, and that's not the first time we've seen this.
No, she was considered for Out of Sight.
Yeah. And
And I feel
Angel
like there's
Eyes
an
too.
oh, I was like, I feel like there's another one.
Maybe that was Catherine
Um,
Zeta-Jones.
yeah, that's crazy. Wait, no, the wedding planner was like Sarah Michelle Gellar and like shit like that.
Yeah, it was Jennifer
Um,
Love Hewitt.
but yeah, so I I don't agree with the critics. I
Yeah.
don't think most people agree. I will say that people on IMDb were definitely like, I don't know why this has so low ratings. Like, I really like this movie and stuff.
Yeah.
So, props to you fans out there for setting it straight.
Uh-huh.
So, Simone, despite Little Roger's measly ass 1.5 stars, how many pumps of butter are we going to give enough?
I am going oh no, I was gonna say, well, you and I both enjoyed some popcorn when we were watching this movie. I made a big bowl of popcorn and enjoyed that as my dinner while we watched. I would give this a good 1, 2, 3, boop, and then like a nice little sprinkle dash of some like white cheddar flavor powder on top.
I'm gonna give this 4 pumps.
I
I really like this movie. Like, it's just so badass. Like, give me
It is
badass J Lo any day, and I will take it. So,
very badass.
all right. So now we're gonna move on. In case you have not seen enough, where like, come on, get your life together at this point. But in case you have not seen enough, a quick summary of the movie. So basically, the movie starts out with Jennifer Lopez playing Slim, a waitress in a diner, and this guy's hitting on her. You can tell she's like been here before, doesn't not into it, but it's all a setup, really. So this guy's hitting
Yes.
on her. A guy is like, hey, he was betting on if he could get with you with his friend, blah, blah, blah. Then she like gets lovey eyes and they wind up married. They look happy. Also, kind of important, Slim doesn't really have a relationship with her dad. She has like a pseudo adopted father, but so she doesn't really have a family of her own. So obviously, getting married to this very well off guy probably is like a big deal for her.
Mm-hmm.
He buys her this house, which is iconic scene to me. Wedded bliss, right? They have a kid, all this stuff. Time goes on. Some pages go off on his pager, and JLo's like, oh, what's this? And so she calls it, figures out he's cheating, fronts him. This is the first time he hits her. So we don't get a lot really of abuse, but like he makes a very strong statement of like, I run this shit and you either fall in line or, this is what it is.
Yes.
So eventually she devises a plan to leave him and take her daughter, which she works out successfully. They get away, but that is not the end of it. Mitch is determined to get his daughter back and probably get Slim back to prove something. And throughout the movie, there's like a cat and mouse game of him trying to find her and her escaping and stuff like that. The end of the movie ends with an amazing scene where she's just had enough and she's like, fuck this, I'm going to pursue him and I'm gonna chase him down on his own territory and fuck him up. And if he dies because that's the point, that's my only option at this point. He hasn't given me any other. And badass work by Jennifer Lopez.
And again, this is a movie where she takes her role very seriously, very professionally, and she took a lot of training in like self-defense classes.
Yeah.
She did have, of course, a couple of like body doubles and stunt doubles and stuff, but most of the fight scenes were all done by her.
Ooh, props to Snaps for JLo.
Yeah.
Oh, and I want to say too that she was nominated for Razzies for this movie, which like fuck you guys. Okay.
And I think that's so unfair too, maybe because it's like the overall sensitive nature of what this movie is about. It's so hard to believe that a actress who's playing a woman fearing for her and her daughter's life and fleeing from domestic abuse and domestic violence would get a Razzie.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. I mean, then again, it was 2002, but still, that's so fucked up.
She didn't win it, so
Yeah.
props to that. I'm curious who won the Razzie now. But yeah, like there has to be like worse B grade movies. And I think part of Razzies too is like harping on well-known actors. They're not gonna like choose some B-roll like cast of up and coming actors no one knows anything about in a bad movie. They're gonna
Mhm.
find what they think are bad roles of well-known actors so that it makes it into things like IMDb or Wikipedia 20 years later and we're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, let's do you want to get into the cast?
Yes, yes, yes. Let's get
All
in
right.
the cast.
So, as Bria mentioned with the summary just a moment ago, the movie stars Jennifer Lopez, and her character's name is Slim. Slim starts off as a waitress in a diner, and this is where she meets her soon to be husband, Mitch, played by Billy Campbell. Most of the actors and actresses, besides Juliette Lewis, kind of just went off to do more TV roles. Billy Campbell, more famously, I think, was known in a very early on Disney, live action Disney film called The Rocketeer, um, which is great. It's on Disney Plus if you want to see it. He plays the main
Ew.
character.
I will for Kevin's sake because I was curious.
Yes, so shout out to Kevin's mom, Kim Dunsberger, who had made a homemade costume of the Rocketeer. I want to say like late 80s for Kevin's older brother. Um, Juliette Lewis plays Slim's best friend, Ginny. Dan Futterman plays Joe, who is Slim's ex-boyfriend, and someone who kind of harbors and shelters Slim and Gracie as they are on the run. And then we have this kind of random character named Jupiter, who's played by Fred Ward. Jupiter is or Slim's estranged dad. Her mother it had been established that her mom had passed away, and that she never really had a relationship with her dad, but she tracks him down, and he's this like rich CEO, ambiguous bigwig in some office. And so at some point when Slim tracks him down, she's like very desperate and she's asking for money. Um, and he's just kind of like, yeah, well, prove it. I probably had 20 kids between this year and this year. So
Yeah.
I always get kids coming in at some point.
Yeah, Papa was a Rolling Stone. Okay.
Papa was very true. But he does kind of, and he doesn't like save the day, but he steps up and provides her with like a cash and a getaway car and a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. So, props to him for manning up, I guess.
So I did watch an interview with Billy Campbell. I think he was on
Would've been
Conan.
Conan, yeah.
Yes, he's on Conan. And so it seems like maybe at this point in Jennifer Lopez's career that she has some say so because he said that she came up to him and approached him and she saw him on something and she wanted him in the movie.
Oh,
And this is
interesting.
similar to Angel Eyes, where she wanted that actor in that movie as well. So come Made in Manhattan, if she wanted Ralph Fiennes in this movie, then we have a pattern, Miss Lopez. So I thought that was interesting. And he talks about again, I think it probably sucks for JLo. I'm sure she's a diva, and I've heard personal stories from other people where they're like, "Oh yeah, she, didn't tip at a casino, and like she doesn't want people looking at her, like the staff or whatever." But as far as like her working, like I think it's interesting that actors and directors still are going out of their way to be like, I had heard some things and like she's really professional. She's like really hardworking. She gave it her all. Like she's really like on her shit. And he again reiterates this in his interview with Conan. So those are the two things I really took from that.
Yeah, that's great. I think I wonder where she had recognized him from or where she knew him from because before that time, before 2002, he was in a bunch of um TV shows like Once and Again, Further Tales of the City, More Tales of the City, Moon over Miami. I don't know. I These are shows that don't
I think
mean
he
much
said
to
an
me.
award show. So maybe he was like presenting an award or something. I'm not sure. Um,
Interesting.
I mean, I should be sure. I watched the interview, but pandemic brain.
I know. Well, he, besides the Rocketeer, I don't really recognize him from many other things. And again, now that he's older, he to me looks very different now than he did almost 20 years ago, 19 years ago when this movie came out.
Yeah.
But that's life. I mean, other other interviews that JLo had said, like JLo had done, I find kind of interesting because I know people like Diane Sawyer kind of be known for asking a little bit more out there questions or something that's a little bit more pressing. But I was kind of surprised in the amount of questions that she got about domestic abuse, of like, have you ever been abused before? And I just think that that's such a bold question to ask someone. And I
Yeah.
don't know, again, because of her celebrity at this point and some of her scandals with P. Diddy and then her other kind of hopping to different love life situations. Like, I don't know if people maybe were speculating of like, oh, is there some kind of personal connection that you have with this character? But anytime someone asked that question, I just felt like it was way too invasive and personal. Like, I don't know. I can never imagine asking someone about that.
Yeah. And I think I'm trying to think of I think it was just a press junket, but someone asked her like or it seems like she kind of had to explain, and I think this is also going back to the reviews, like explain that this movie isn't some like perfect situation scenario or idealistic, unrealistic situation of domestic abuse that women are going to watch and get like this idea in their head that, oh, I could do that. Like, and she explains, she's like, I don't think it's so much about like that, but more so that you have that power within you to change, the things and get out of the situation. And you just have to like figure that out and tap into it in some kind of way. And it can look
Mhm.
different for everyone. But like, I think that's the message she goes with in interviews of like what this movie is about.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, I think I think putting too much weight on movies like this that deal with really serious issues, like media is important in exposing people to things that might not happen in their lives, and giving us exposure to things, other cultures and all kinds of stuff. But at the same time, we also can't expect movies to be able to accurately portray like every situation. Everything is going to be different for everybody. Like this might not. And you know what? As a true crime fan and like watching shit like Snapped and stuff like that, this is kind of realistic. Like shit like this happens all the time where people meet somebody, get married, and then they change. Like, and in this movie, like it didn't happen overnight. It just kind of happened. Like she had already had Gracie. Gracie looks like she's like 3 or 4. Well, she's in like, was that preschool or kindergarten? Looks like she's like 3 or 4 at least, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say yeah, like 4, 5, or 6 between that age range.
Yeah, so it didn't happen overnight, which sometimes domestic abuse doesn't happen overnight. Like,
Right.
but yeah, like shit like this happens, and trying to better yourself and get out of it. Like the scene where she's at the police station and she's just like, so there's nothing I can really do that's going to help me in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it just,
And I'm glad that that scene was brought to light because the system doesn't always work in a woman's favor, and especially a woman with a child. And as fucked up as that is, I'm really glad that they showcase that like unless you have what was it like physical evidence of abuse and then physical evidence of abuse on your child,
Yeah.
what
And
can you
even
do?
then, prime example, OJ and Nicole,
Mm-hmm.
like there are pictures of her that like OJ should have been like in jail, tarnished prior to him winding up killing her and Ron. But like, it's just like even if she did have okay, like she went to the police station, she had on sunglasses, but she could have very well been like, my husband hit me, take a picture. But
Mm-hmm.
like that a lot of times put them in worse situations because it's like, oh, now you're telling people. So now I have to get even more like controlling and,
Mm-hmm.
put you in your place sort of thing. So it's just like people don't put all domestic abuse of like weight on this movie or
Right.
movies in general. Like they
Totally.
can
This
only
is
do so
not
much.
textbook. This is not textbook at all.
And also that's why we have Lifetime. They are churning them out in all different kind of iterations and scenarios. Okay.
That's right.
I did watch, I've seen Double Jeopardy. Have you by chance?
Mm-mm.
So I've seen Double Jeopardy. I really like that movie. And I watched Sleeping with the Enemy because they were both brought up in reviews. And um Lil Raj brought them up too because he's like, oh, we've seen this before. And it's just like, we could see it till our face is blue. The shit still happens.
Yeah.
So we need a reminder.
Right. And just because it makes you feel uncomfortable when you watch it doesn't mean that it doesn't serve a purpose for other people because I looked at reviews on IMDb and then sometimes I'll look at reviews on Amazon because I ended up renting it from Amazon since I swear like just 2 weeks ago it was on Netflix and they took it off. So I paid $2.99 and I'm not ashamed of it to rent it. So a lot of people had commented that like as a survivor of abuse, like this movie is satisfying to me in X, Y, and Z. And sure, it's not always a realistic scenario or situation, but it's one that like made me feel more empowered to
Mhm.
leave or recognize signs of abuse. So,
Or even kids of domestic abuse. I saw on YouTube, I think someone commented like, oh, this reminds me of like my mom and my mom having to like take care of me as a single mom and do the best she can. And, just like, and I think that's also, I just want to point out a lot of the critics were men. So obviously, we might need some female critics to actually do this movie and other movies like it justice in terms of what it's about. It's the
mhm.
same thing with like white critics writing about movies with people of color.
Yep.
Of course, you're not going to get it. It's not your experience. Like,
Yep.
there's a reason that maybe you should tap into like a person of color writing a review about something that you don't understand. Like,
Mhm.
but yeah, they just clearly don't understand like that this movie is a message for women to be strong, to work on ways that we can help ourselves first and foremost, and learn new things and go be creative and all that kind of stuff in order to protect ourselves. But yes, okay, so
100%. This might be like one of our most topical J-Lo or like hot take J-Lo ones. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
because we're not talking about big ass snakes anymore. We're getting a little bit more serious.
Yes, that is true. And I think like Roger Ebert did point out, he's like, I could see why she wanted to do this movie. Like this is her play at, distancing herself from the wedding planner and rom-coms and stuff like that, and playing alongside like men in a romantic way
Mm-hmm.
and trying to do something serious. So I think I agree with that. I think he thinks that this isn't a strong enough script and movie to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a great testament to her being a serious actress, and I wish she did more stuff like this, but probably these trash ass reviews and stuff she's like, I might as well just keep turning out rom-coms. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about Jennifer Lopez's performance, since
Okay.
we agree that she is amazing in this movie.
Yes. Maybe not so much her wig, but in general.
Which I didn't know. I didn't know until we watched it that they were wigs. So props to the prop department.
But I mean, I think her short wig was fine. I loved her pixie cut. In fact, I thought that pixie cut was real. I thought she really did cut her hair super short. I think that she just looked so good with that haircut. This role that she takes on as Slim is a lot different compared to others, in that yes, she is sexualized and objectified, but she kind of spins that narrative back onto something else and takes her power back. And it kind of reminded me of some of the Blood and Wine, for example. You know, she and U-Turn, like, she serves the purpose as the damsel in distress, or the femme fatale, or whatever you want to call it. She serves the purpose of a romantic object and is only looked at through a male gaze and through a male lens. And I love the fact that Mitch had even said this line, like, from the moment I saw you, I knew I wanted you and I had to have you, and I got it. I got what I wanted. And I don't think he ever loved her. I think he just wanted her. He wanted to possess her. He wanted to have her. And so it reminds me of when they cut to the wedding scene. I think just the part of their vows, it just says, like, to have and to hold. Like, he emphasizes the word have, and it's all about just having her in his possession. So this is the first time that we see her being like, I'm not yours to own, I'm not yours to keep. And it gives me the goosebumps thinking about it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that I agree. And I think when we were watching it, like during the reception, when they're dancing and he's like, are you going to give me babies? And we were both like, oh, like, you're like, give me, like. And then later on, when the big reveal that we find out that the guy in the diner is his friend, and he's a cop, and he's helping him trying to track her and figure out where she is. When he's like, I don't understand, like, why you can't just let her go, like, and he's like, well, she's got my kid and stuff. He's like, well, like, all the women we've done this like scam on, why'd you have to go and marry like her? Like, what is it about her? And I think you're right. I didn't realize that he just, like, he wanted to possess her.
Yes.
And I think that's similar to the Julia Roberts movie Sleeping with the Enemy. Like, her husband in that movie, like, is crazy too. And it just seems like he just, like, they're dolls or something. Like, you're mine. No one else can play with you.
Exactly. I feel like, you and I are both collectors of different kinds of memorabilia, and it's very psychopath in that way when, like, serial killers will keep trophies of their victims, that she was like the high creme de la creme trophy of his life, and he's proud of the fact that she's his, not the fact of, like, oh, that's my wife, and, like, look at how amazing she is, of just like, she's mine, like, puts her in this little glass box that no one else can touch.
Yes. And I think this is the perfect time to talk about my opening line, the shower scene, because you are married to Slim, who's played by the Jennifer Lopez, which, amazing. We already know. And even watching this, I've been really cognizant that, like, we started out like, we're not going to sexualize J-Lo. It's hard not to.
I know.
And I don't think we're doing it in a way that's degrading, like maybe men would, but just like admiration and just like, God, she's beautiful. Like, and I think this is another movie where they play down her beauty, and She's not super glammed up or anything, but
Mhm.
like she's still pretty. Like you can't help it.
Yeah.
But you were married to Jennifer Lopez in this movie, and you are still fucking around on her and having affairs. He won't even say how many affairs he's having. He's just like, what does it matter? Like, I have needs. But you turn her down. He's in the shower and she's like, hey, like, you mind if I join you? And she like undoes her robe and he like pops his head out and he's just like, oh no, like I'm in and out real quick. I gotta go back to work. And she's just like so defeated and just like hurt. And we were just both like, what? In what world is this true? And as much as we as women can say that and appreciate that, in the reality of things, Jennifer Lopez has been cheated on very recently and previously. And then you have Beyonce. I mean, Sandra Bullock, all amazing, beautiful women that we can look to and be like, how in the world are they getting cheated on? We don't know them personally, but just like looks wise, like as women, we're just like, what more could you be for a man? Like,
Right.
But yeah.
And that was funny because right at this time, Kevin had walked into the room and I was like, Kevin. And he turned around. I was like, if Jennifer Lopez knocked on the door and said, hey, can I hop in the shower with you? What would you do? And for a second, his face was like, is this a trick? But yeah, I mean, it's just, no, who would say no? Because you and I were both like, if she knocked on my door,
like being self-conscious, we were like, let me like put on something.
Yeah, like you want to see me? Okay, hold on. I'm a never nude, so I'm just gonna put on my bathing suit here. So you're gonna
jean shorts.
I'd be like, I am not worthy to share a shower with you, Miss Lopez. But if you want to, yes, you can use my Dove shampoo. That is fine.
Yes. Oh my God. Exactly. Like, I think women just obviously have a different perspective on a lot of things. So
I know.
I think a lot of average dudes, though, would be like, the fuck? Like,
the fuck?
Yeah.
I know.
But when you're Mitch and you're rich and powerful, you're just like, oh, you just get away. Like,
yeah, when you're Mitch and you're a little bitch.
I know the whole time I was thinking like Mitch rhymes with bitch, or it's like the male equivalent of bitch to some people. Like, so
oh, interesting.
I was like, it works. I think this name choice is purposeful.
Absolutely.
Besides that, also, I think really strong points to me, like Roger Ebert was like, oh, you know, she has these really all over the place emotions and they're kind of not really that believable. I believed it, especially when she's like in the diner and she's like, I'm not this person. Like, I don't want to be the wife who gets hit by her husband. Like, that's not who I am. Like, I was just like, yes, that's not you, honey. Don't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I was having a good time watching it with you. There were definitely parts that made me feel uncomfortable, but that's just because abuse is really hard to watch. And so there were parts during some of the more intense scenes that I was like, like I audibly gasped a lot. But I don't really remember dialogue being like, that's stupid in this segment. But yeah. I
will say, like, Mitch's like, it was pointed out, I think, by Roger Ebert, like, or someone else, that like Mitch's argument of like, you know, I get what I want, and like the whole like him getting the house thing is a testament to that. Like, so do you really want to play this game with me? And that's his power tactic. Like, and some of them were like the abuse kind of came out of nowhere, which I don't think you need to build up. Like, do you need to see her get beat like 4 times before? Seriously.
And you're right. Like, it's not one of those things that like, it's a slow progression of things. But we started to see that a little bit, like when she was giving birth to Gracie in the hospital and he answers a phone call from quote unquote work, supposedly, and he has to leave. Like, we see these kind of sketchy signs that
he doesn't, though. He like answers it and he's like, not right now. Like, so she buys into that he's like going to be all about family and stuff. So he cloak and daggered her. Like he dirty johned her.
Yeah. Well, and even I think what the part that actually bothered me the most was when Slim goes to have lunch with Mitch's mom, so her mother-in-law, and
Oh my
she
god.
and she leaves Gracie either at home or she leaves her with Ginny, I forget, but she her mom like it's like, oh no, no, Gracie, okay, we'll have a girls' lunch and we'll gossip. And then Slim just breaks down and cries, takes off her sunglasses, and she goes, oh, what did you say to him? That bothered me. And I'm not saying that that's unrealistic because I'm sure, you know, there have been parents who have to come to terms with the fact that their children that they loved and raised maybe in a problematic way have become abusers and they have a tough time grappling with that situation. But it sounds like she knew that he had some kind of anger management problems because of like with the way that she reacted of like, what did you say to him to provoke him to do that to you?
Yeah.
Not like, holy shit, what happened? Like, we need to file a report. I just think that was very sad and sucky.
Yeah, I took it more as like a generational thing because I feel like her generation of women
I didn't
were,
even think of that. Dude, that's
yeah,
smart.
were the women who couldn't have bank accounts in their names. So they
Yep.
couldn't really leave their husbands. And it was always like, you need to be this wife and you need to do this, and he won't hit you or he won't do this to you. And so I took that more as that kind of thing. Like, and I'm pretty sure if we saw like a conversation between her and Slim, she would have just been like, you have a nice house, you have Gracie, like you should just keep the peace and just live life and let him do what he wants to do. Or like those moms, like he's cheating on her, those moms who are like, he's a man, like he has needs, like just turn the other cheek. And as long as he's, not hitting you or like, and everything's fine, just, he'll grow out of it. And it's just like,
Yeah.
no.
You're so right. I wonder if there were like deleted scenes or some kind of cut because I think that would have maybe cleared some things up as to why she said that. But damn, as soon as you said that, I'm like, ah, that's smart. That's smart. Because that is such a generational thing of like, I must have said something where it was accepted of women that like, oh, it's my fault that
Yeah.
this abuse is happening, which is bullshit.
Exactly. So yeah, we both cringed at that part. I did really like, even when she confronted him about like the calls, I felt that was believable, like their argument and stuff.
Mhm.
And then after that, we don't really get them together until the end, and then it's just like her. Well, and then he pops up in Michigan, but it's like mostly just her, like kind of on the run and trying to figure stuff out. So, obviously, the end is like, I feel like the strongest part of her performance in the
that's
movie.
definitely the climax of the role or of the movie. So I, kind of going off in this segment about our special connections with this character, I'm lucky to say that I lived in a household where I didn't have to witness abuse, but I do remember my mom being very, I guess she always taught my sister and I either self-defense moves or just the importance of standing up for yourself. And so I remember renting this movie. I don't remember if my dad sat down and watched it with us, but for sure I remember me, my mom, and Leah, my sister, and my mom being like so jazzed about this ending. And she was just like, fuck yeah! Like every punch, every kick, and watching suspenseful movies with my mom anyways is just always funny because she's very loud, like wow 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 wow. she'll have these like yelling moments, so it's just funny. I'm like, where does my anxiety come from? Who knows? But yeah, she was very much like hey, who wants to take a kickboxing class with me? Like, let's learn some of these defense moves and mechanisms, and would teach us about jabbing of the eyes and the elbows and stuff. So that's my kind of special connection to that, is seeing my mom's excitement about kind of this female empowerment role of taking your life back into your own hands.
Hey, Lil Raj, you needed to talk to the moms showing their daughters this movie.
Maybe your wife should have reviewed this for you.
And he's married to a black lady. I'm sure she was all about this movie.
Are you kidding?
I think so, yeah. I think Lil Raj, he's dipping in the chocolate pool.
Okay, little progressive, Lil Raj. We love you.
Why am I Googling Roger Ebert, but I typed little? Like LIL. Oh my God.
Lil Raj.
Yeah, his wife is African American.
Nice. Cool. I never knew that.
Her name is Chaz. That's an interesting name for a lady.
Is it like a full name or the abbreviated, you know?
Does not say.
That's cute. I like that name.
It just says Chaz.
Is she still alive?
Yes.
Nice.
She's 68.
Let's write her a letter.
About, like, what?
I don't know.
We have dubbed your husband Lil Raj, and he lives on through our podcast, and we might not agree with his ratings, but we are still fond of his critical examination of movies.
Yeah.
All right, so back onto Enough and Jennifer Lopez.
Yep.
Shall we talk about the end?
Yes, let's talk about that climax, baby.
Yeah. Just what do you say?
It's fantastic. So at this point, Mitch is living in Los Angeles, right? In this very large,
modern, boxy house.
Yeah, lots of kind of weird sections.
Windows.
Yes, I've never
floor plan.
And so Slim breaks in to the house. She diffuses the alarm, or I guess diffuse is the right word. She
so that's a
disarms.
plot hole.
Okay.
Because when she breaks in, she like picklocks the door, right? And she goes in. Mm-hmm. The alarm doesn't go off. But the next day, like when Mitch leaves for work, he sets the alarm. So I don't know if he only sets it like when he's not home. You know, I feel like men might do that. Like,
yeah, because he was home, because she comes in and he's like pounding on another woman.
Well, no, they're asleep.
Sorry, love making. Yeah, they're asleep. He's in bed with another woman. But so I wonder if just because like he was home that it was disarmed. But I don't know. I wouldn't see that so much as a plot hole. But I think men have the confidence to sleep unarmed. So good for you. But anyways, so she sneaks into the house and she deactivates the alarm when Mitch leaves to go on some kind of a business trip, or what it sounds like, or she gives a ruse to make Mitch believe that she's in San Francisco. And so he hops a flight to go to San Francisco because that's where he thinks that where Slim is. And she does this little good old fashioned switcheroo.
Yes.
And so she gives herself away because when Mitch leaves, he forgets to turn off the coffee pot. And so she turns off the coffee pot. And then he walks back in, remembering that he forgot to do it, and sees that it was turned off already, which kind of gives her away a little bit, but he still ends up leaving.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And so then what happens next, Bria? What is this cool little montage that we see?
So we see her in his apartment, and she has brought with her this duffel bag full of goodies to prepare to kick his ass. Mm-hmm. And so amongst them, she has this cell phone service thing that will cut off cell service. She cuts the phone lines, I think, to the house. And then she goes around and kind of feels out the space so that when he's coming after her and she's on her walking backwards and on her heels, sort of. She like knows like where she can go, which is so badass. I remember when we were watching it, you were like, oh, this is where she, and so that's a memorable part of this movie. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so smart. She finds his guns and hides them. And then she puts letters in his nightstand where his gun is. So when he goes to look for the gun, he touches the letters.
Yep.
And then, then she winds up calling her friend to get like a little pep talk and to test the cell phone thing. And then she prepares for when he comes home later. And then we see her put on these chunky ass rings, like some rings your like Pop would wear, and then wrapping her hands in like boxing tape or wrap. And then she throws on the black Tims because she means business and it's the Bronx up in there. And yeah, we wait for Mitch to come home. I do want to go back though and just point out like this movie also has some really clever like things she did prior to this of her like escaping Mitch or like planning for if he ever comes and finds her. So initially when she leaves, I thought it was really clever that she like took like a travel shampoo bottle of water and put it in the toilet so it sounds like she's peeing.
Yeah.
And when she gets Gracie and stuff and is trying to leave their house. And then when she's in Michigan, she like pretty much home alones her house in preparation for him. So she has this like system with the back door where if she has to leave, she pulls this thing and it like has this wood stop where he can't get through the back door. She uses a baby monitor, an old school baby monitor, because now you would just set up a bunch of video cameras probably.
Yeah.
But old school baby monitor so she can hear. I don't know where the baby monitor is. I'm assuming it might be in Gracie's room, but so she can hear in case like something happens. And then obviously he comes to Michigan, and so she utilizes all that stuff. And then we find out she has a whole other like secret stash car where she has like money and a wig and all this stuff prepared for if she had to go on the run. So she learned a lot from her initial escape where she leaves and her accounts are frozen. She doesn't have any money. She doesn't have, the means to like rent a nice hotel room. She has to stay in a motel and stuff like that. And her phone call gets traced with her friend. So she learns to keep like her phone calls like under a certain amount of time with people and stuff like that. She starts going to a phone booth out of the way to different phone booths to try to throw him off.
She changes her identity. She gets a new like passport and ID and stuff.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there because like all the stuff she brought with her to the house is also a testament of like her having learned a lot from those experiences.
That's true. Thank you for adding that because she didn't just go from like 0 to 60. There was some progression and things that she learned along the way.
Yeah. And then Jupiter helps her. Helps her get the decoy and stuff like that. He sends her the money, which I'm pretty sure helped her like set up like her new life and prepare herself for stuff. Obviously she has some rekindling moments with her ex-boyfriend, but I feel like that's not important in this movie. I wasn't like, I was just like, oh yeah, I don't even know why she's dating him. Like, because he's kind of lackluster of an ex.
Yeah, it kind of was. Or just, I don't know. I was like, why try and force this new relationship? I don't know if it was like not a Florence Nightingale effect, but just something of like, well, he's, saving me right now. And so I'm looking at him in a different light. But
that's where he's from. He's the son in the birdcage.
Yeah, he is.
Yes. But yes. But so in this final scene, finally, Mitch comes home and he tries to turn on the lights. The lights don't work. And he's like, what? And so he looks out the window. He sees other people's lights are on. And he's like, what's going on? And then I forget. There was something else like that. He was like, okay, this is weird. And so he
Mm-hmm.
goes to the gun and then she speaks up and she's like, I found it. And it's like, oh shit, it's on. And the whole
Yes.
time he's just like a very like cocky, like, this is cute. Like you think
Yeah.
that you're
You really
gonna,
think you can hurt me?
yeah. And she's like, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just trying to defend myself. And
Mhm.
she's clearly outsmarted him. And then, oh, and then we're skipping the beautiful montage of her learning Krav Maga and
Yes.
her trainer talking her through scenarios that wind up happening and wind up helping her, like when he chokes her
Mm-hmm.
and she's able to get out of that, or at the very end where he's like, okay, let's say he gets you down
He thinks
and
you're down. He's standing
yeah,
over you.
yes, like that part just like chills. And then when it
Yes.
happens in the actual thing, you're like, oh yeah, she's gonna fuck you up. Like you think you got her, but
It's
you
you
don't. But yeah, that whole thing is just, I think that scene is a testament again to, like you said earlier, like her preparation. Like
Mm-hmm.
she really was about that. Someone asked her in an interview, I think that in the AP, the Associated Press video I saw on YouTube about like her using those techniques or whatever. And she's like, well, I mean, I don't use them every day. Like
Mm-hmm.
I learned it for the movie, but like I don't use it every day or anything like that. But it was a lot to learn and fun and whatnot. But yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why JLo has bodyguards. Like she doesn't need Krav Maga.
She does not. But she
But
could.
what?
I don't know. I like to think that like if all else fails, I like to think that JLo could throw a good punch. Like,
Oh yeah, I think I asked you that when we were watching this. I was like, do you think JLo could still kick some ass? And you're like, oh
she
yeah,
could
for
kick
sure.
my ass for sure.
Oh, she could definitely kick our ass. But I think she works out a lot anyway, so I
She's
wouldn't be
super
surprised if
strong.
like she has some kind of boxing or something in her workouts.
Oh yeah. I think either way she's gonna be scarred. Because Mitch ends up dying. Um and I think that either way, the scenario where he doesn't die and goes to jail, or he does die, I mean, she's just going to have to live with that trauma anyways. I thought the ending was satisfying, but I remember I either said this to you or I was thinking like she's got to go through some good therapy. Her and Gracie, because Gracie's at that age where she can remember things and she's going to have like memories of that
Oh, and then
time.
probably like the talk about like Gracie's very like, I want to talk to my dad and stuff like that. So like telling her dad is dead, like but I liked the ending. I thought it was satisfying. I reading some stuff online though, people have poked holes in the ending. So like the whole like self-defense isn't murder thing is not probably going to hold up for her. So from a true crime perspective, she might go to jail.
Yeah.
But like watching the movie, I wasn't thinking that and I wasn't believing that. I was like, she got him. Like, she doesn't have to worry about this anymore. They can move on with their lives.
Right.
And she smartly thought of stuff. I think I think if this were to be remade, they would have to really think out like her case of like this was self-defense better.
It would have to be sealed tight. Also, I want to know what happened to that shit cop. I want to know what that happened like to his buddy, because he was chasing her and Gracie in the car and kind of has to pull off, like he gets in an accident and stuff, but take his ass to jail too. He needs to be tried. He needs to be held accountable for his actions. He can't just walk away.
Yeah, I wonder if he like walked away from that accident though, because was pretty. Did he get out afterwards? Yeah, he did.
He
And he was
did.
like pissed off. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's an asshole too. Something needs to happen to him. Karma's gonna get him. Hopefully.
Seriously, I think in my scenario in my head, again, I'm just gonna make this up that if there was a director's cut or some kind of extended edition with deleted scenes, that there was a court scene that followed up where Jupiter came and again, like, bailed JLo out, not just with money, but like he can attest because the Mitch's like bodyguards and scary police officer dudes also came to rough Jupiter up as well. And so that he can be this witness to the saga so that her alibi kind of sticks out. And same with Joe, the ex-boyfriend, like they roughed him up and cut up his couch and as they were looking for Slim and Gracie. So I don't know. That's my scenario of like
she has
tying
great
up.
witnesses. Yes.
Yeah,
It's just there's not a lot of proof.
Yeah, there's just, but yeah, I wish that that was a little followed up. But other than that, like to me, the movie still holds up 20 years
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, same. I agree. I enjoyed watching it again. So I'm probably gonna watch it again in the future. So well, let's talk about the trailer. So this is the best trailer so far to me.
Absolutely. Agreed.
It is suspenseful, it is thrilling. It doesn't give it all away, but it gives away some elements and stuff of it. But it's like it's definitely a trailer you see and you're like, or I watched it and I was like, oh, I would totally want to go see this. Like if I saw this, I'm in the movies to watch another movie and I saw this before, the pre-trailers and stuff, I'd be like, oh, I gotta write that down. Like I want to see this. It's like this JLo movie. So I really liked the trailer. I thought it was A+.
Me too.
So basically we would go see this in theaters, I'm guessing.
100% I would. And
I
wouldn't.
double dip. I'm a double dip. I'm gonna go see it in theaters.
I would double dip.
I'm gonna like it so much that I'm gonna be like, I can't wait till this is at Blockbuster until I can buy it on DVD, like or VHS.
I know, and I would split a jumbo bucket popcorn with you. I'd be hella stoked to see this in the theater today. I'm
gonna put an extra pump than you were, so I'm sneak a pump in there.
Do it. I mean, shit, it's a jumbo, so we can afford the extra pump. But I think that, there's honestly not much I would change about this movie. Although, kind of to your point about Gracie, I would like a little bit more light shed on the Justice Department system of how difficult it is for spousal abuse or like for a spouse to file for abuse and to actually win or get some kind of settlement in court. I think to shed and I know that probably might be hard to do because not just police but just the justice system in general, they don't like that when movies bring to light call them out of the error of their ways. But that's kind of one thing that I would change. Or I would, if this wasn't to star Jennifer Lopez, to star a woman of color, another woman of color, or an indigenous woman, just to talk about how much worse it is for maybe a non-privileged group of women.
Yeah. Especially the system part of it.
Like, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know why. I thought of I think Boys in the Hood, where it's like they don't care about what's going on in the hood or whatever. But yeah, there's not much I would change either. I know that review wise and stuff and being critical of the movie, like people are pointing out certain things, or they think that like Slim being on the run and playing cat and mouse with Mitch is like filler and it's not deep enough. But I'm just like, I don't know what else you put there. Like she got away and she still has to be on the defensive because like he's still pursuing her. So
yeah, I still found the in-between stuff suspenseful because he managed to find her at every new location that she went to.
Yeah, I don't know what they wanted. I know like in Sleeping with the Enemy, Julia Roberts, she leaves. But her situation is totally different. She doesn't have a child. She fakes her death. And then slowly her husband figures out that she's alive and that she left him, and so he's pursuing her and stuff. And like the way he finds her is way worse than Enough. So, in my opinion, comparing these movies, to me, I was just like, I think Enough's actually a better movie. Like, I think it learned off of the heels of movies like that. Like, we might have to be a little bit smarter about this. And in turn, I think a current movie, you have to be a little bit smarter. And then we have so much technology to
That's true.
incorporate that would add a totally different element. Because, like, while we do have cell phones in this movie, we have smartphones now, which
Uh-huh.
are way more insane. Like, you can track people with smartphones, you can set up security cameras and have them on your smartphone and stuff like that. So, movies like this and Home Alone and stuff like that, where you deal with technology helping you, um, or setting up like booby traps and stuff. I'm always curious to see how that would be handled in this
Mm-hmm.
world of technological advancement. I don't know if this movie needs to be remade. I think we could at this time probably use another movie similar to it. I'm sure there might be movies that have been made similarly to it, but none I can think of. So,
Yeah.
and now I think when we were watching this, you picked out, did you pick out your snack and cocktail or?
Did I? I mean, I have one ready now. I can't, and if I remembered, or if I said something, then I don't remember. Sorry. Um,
Yeah, I
my
don't remember either.
my cocktail for this one is it's like a pre-made cocktail that I looked up, but it's called the Kicker,
Ooh.
and it is made of ice, just ice. It's a nice cocktail with white rum, sweet vermouth, and apple brandy, and it's served in a martini glass. The Kicker.
Ah, nice. Um, Whenever we think about these, I really just think about the cup.
Hmm.
I want a souvenir cup. um, I don't know. I feel like a souvenir, like a ceramic cup of like one of those rings she was wearing, or like of like a fist with all those rings would be dope. So that's
Are
like
you
what's in my head.
describing Thanos's gauntlet cup?
Yes, kind of. Yes, but it has gaudy like pop jewelry on it,
Got
like
it.
gold rings instead
Got
of
it.
infinity stones.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god, that's exactly what I'm describing. Or and then obviously if she works at a diner, I feel like diner food is appropriate. We could order what the cop guy ordered.
Hmm.
I think he ordered like a club sandwich and
Yeah.
very specific stuff because that's the only food stuff really
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems fair. I feel like with the nature of this movie, maybe because it's a little bit more serious, it feels weird to like
Yeah.
make a pun out of something, although I clearly already just did that with a cocktail called the Kicker, but I'm thinking of her more like kicking ass.
Yes,
Opens up
yes.
a can of whoop ass. Maybe that's
Ooh, a
it.
can of whoop ass drink. I like that. Yes. Excuse me. Can I order the can of whoop ass?
Whoop.
Like that's like this TikTok I saw when it's like drinks at restaurants be like named like hella crazy ass shit, and you order like and you're like, yeah, can I have the sex in the shower, and then the waiter's like, oh, you want a sex in the shower, okay, one sex in the like, and they call it out and it's like, god damn it. Like, or like she wants the sex in the shower, add a shot and then no. Like it's just like okay, like I was trying to keep that on the low, but thanks. You and your weird ass drink names. Like
Seriously. My mom had a drink called the wet pussy or like the
she
slippery
had a walk
pussy.
before walk. It was
She did. Well, so when my mom was like underage drinking, she would always get screwdrivers, which I think is like grapefruit juice and
mm-hmm.
vodka. But she was like abandoned in this like really shitty motel in Ohio, she got like delayed from her flight and then the flight got canceled. I forget the entire story, but like it was a really long, like they were being dragged along for a long time and the flight put them up in a motel and she was just like, I'm going down to this bar and getting a drink. And her and the other people who were also kicked off the flight or like screwed over wanted a drink too. And so she asked the bartender, like, all right, what do you got for me? Is like, I'll get you a wet pussy. So next week when we follow up, I don't know off the top of my head what's in a wet pussy, and I'm on my work computer and I really don't want to look that up. So,
yeah, please don't look on, and I'm on my work computer too, so please don't look up wet pussy on your work computer.
I won't, but I will share next week, and maybe that will go with our next week's episode. So do you think we should wrap up?
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to this week's episode. If anyone is experiencing domestic violence or abuse or may know of someone who is, you can find help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233 or 1-800-799-SAFE. And to the people who stuck with us so far, come back for another episode of the great value version of Inside the Actress Studio.
Absolutely. Please know that you are loved and that you and your loved ones can get help. And if you do like us enough to stick around, please take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us as we discuss a more lighthearted film, Made in Manhattan.
Yes, and on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I'm your host, Simone.
I'm your host, Bria, and this has been another episode of
Roll Call. And cut. Dear Chaz Ebert, we were recently talking about the movie Enough, released in 2002. Your husband, whom we call Lil Raj, only gave this movie 1.5 stars. But we're curious, as a woman, what would you rate this one? Like, how many pumps of butter would you give this movie? Sincerely, Simone and Bria.
Oh my God.